Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to My Time, My Life with Trinette Faint. On this season of my podcast, I'll be talking to a variety of people, from creative entrepreneurs to business owners to writers to entertainers and others, about being bold and courageous, overcoming obstacles, and taking risks, all in the name of chasing dreams and building a career. I hope their stories will inspire you on your own journey. Thanks for listening. My guest today is Herb Ankrom, an Emmy Award-winning seasoned film and television executive producer who has worked in the entertainment industry for 20 years. Herb began his career in Los Angeles in 1995, working as a production assistant on the popular sitcom Roseanne, starring Roseanne Barr and John Goodman. After Roseanne, he shifted to film and worked several years in production roles on films like Batman and Robin, Cruel Intentions, and The Bourne Identity. In 2002, he was hired to produce on a pilot for ABC, which became Extreme Makeover Home Edition, that he produced for 5 seasons, garnering the show 2 Emmys and 5 Emmy nominations. Following Extreme Makeover, Herb became director of development for a production company and went on to help develop and produce shows such as NBC's School Pride and ABC's True Beauty Seasons 1 and 2. More recently, Herb worked as co-executive producer on Bravo's Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and New Jersey, Cyrus vs. Cyrus, and Southern Charm, New Orleans. He was also executive producer on the Lionsgate film Open Water 3, Cage Dive, and has several scripted projects in development. Most recently, he co-executive produced Netflix's $1 Million Beach House and Bravo's Real Housewives of New Jersey. Currently, he is executive producing Serving the Hamptons Season 2 for Discovery+. Hey, Herb, thanks for joining today.
Hey, wow, I'd like to meet that person. Who is that person?
Well, go hold up a mirror because I think it's you.
Oh my goodness. It's you hear it read out like that, you're like, wow, I'm an old person.
Seasoned.
Seasoned.
This is the word we use on this show.
Seasoned professional.
That is quite a resume. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you. I've been very fortunate.
Let's start at the beginning. Tell us how you came into this good fortune to work in the entertainment business. Like what started that for you?
Well, I think way back, I've always enjoyed, like in high school and college and stuff, theater and acting and performing. And one of my dear friends right out of high school went to New York to become a model, and she did that for like 15 years. And I would go visit her in college and be like, wow, this, all of it kind of excited me, whether it was modeling, the commercials, like all of that stuff, and going to the movies. And I mean, it just all kind of intrigued me. And so when I was in college, I actually, after my sophomore year being a business major, was like, this is awful. So I dropped out of college and moved to LA. And for a year and a half, I pursued doing commercials and acting myself, and realized, as much as I enjoyed it, that you don't have any control over your career as an actor. And you really, not that you have much more control on the business side of things, it's a lot easier to control that. So I went back to college, finished my degree, and then moved back to Los Angeles to pursue producing, and really just have enjoyed it ever since. And was very fortunate to, continue to work for quite a long time. Ups and downs.
Speaking of acting, didn't you have a small role in Cruel Intentions? Do I remember that?
I delivered coffee to Christine Baranski.
There you go.
Quite the facial expression. Yes, that was. I was actually the production coordinator on that movie, and the director, Roger Cumble, who's awesome. Just, I don't know. He and I clicked. He thought I was hilarious. He actually created an entire scene. And the producer at the time, Neil Moritz, was like, I am not paying for our production coordinator to join Screen Actors Guild to be in a role. And so it got all the way cut down to me just like delivering coffee. But Roger zoomed in on me, and it was hilarious. And to this day, I mean, Cruel Intentions was, oh my gosh, 20, 30 years ago. To this day, I get emails or text messages like, I was in a hotel room at 3:00 in the morning and there was your face. So
I need to watch that. I've never seen that movie, and I'm going
to make watch it.
A special note to watch it and just look for that scene.
Yeah. It's a really fun movie. It's a cool modern take on Dangerous Liaisons. the
Okay.
original story. So it's a fun story, and I love, I obviously at that time met like Sarah Gellar and Reese Witherspoon, all those people, and they're just awesome to watch their success, but just really nice people.
Um, so you mentioned how you went to LA and you realized you didn't have any control of your life being an actor, so you started pursuing producing.
Hmm.
Was there anyone that was influential, like a producer that you had met or something, somebody that kind of showed you the ropes, and how difficult was it to start doing that?
Yeah. There was no one really that showed me how to, or like kind of mentored me.
Hmm.
I just was watching, being there for that period of time before I went back to school to get my degree. Um, I just saw it happening and saw producers at work and saw people on set and was like, that's what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that's what I
Mm,
want to do. And then when I graduated college and moved back to Los Angeles, I just lived on couches. I couch surfed. And
hmm.
I mean, ironically, my very first job on the Roseanne sitcom came because my mother in Virginia at home one Sunday in church was telling her friend, who she's like, "Oh my gosh, your son should talk to my daughter. She's the executive producer of a show called Grace Under Fire," which was Brett
Shut up.
Butler's comedy. Yep. And so they sent me the information. I contacted Miriam Trogdon was her name, and I contacted her, and she was like, "Let's have lunch." Ironically, we went to lunch, and we figured out that she was actually my substitute teacher when I was in eighth grade. Before she moved to LA, she would
Wow.
substitute teach for her mom, who was my math teacher. I mean, it was the smallest world ever. And
Wow.
that's that woman. She was a writer producer on the on Grace Under Fire. Got me a meeting with the executive vice president of Carsey Warner, which was the company that produced
Yeah.
Roseanne and The Cosby Show, Different Strokes, Sybil, all these shows.
Wow.
And
That's incredible.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And I went in and met with him, and he, I expected to have 10 minutes with him. I stayed in his office for like 45 minutes. We just chatted. And at the end, he said, "Call me every week till I get you a job." And he got me a job on the Roseanne television show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another reason for everyone to be
And then
nice to their
you just learn the
mothers, because you
ropes.
never know.
Yeah. You never, no, absolutely. You never know where your jobs are going to come from. And you also, one of the biggest things I've learned in this business is never burn a bridge.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
someone that you're working with or for could end up being your boss the next year. It
Exactly. And
happens
for
that quickly.
how big the business is, it's really small.
Very, very
Really,
small.
really small. Yeah.
Very small.
Well,
Yeah,
it seems like, your early years in college studying business really came in handy as a producer, because it's not
absolutely,
all that different.
absolutely. I still can't balance a checkbook, but which is why on all my shows it's good to have a line producer and someone who actually does the budgeting so that I don't have to do it. They just like to tell me no because I like to spend more money than I should.
That's
So,
hysterical. Um, what were some of the challenges you faced when you started producing, and how did you overcome them?
um, I think. Well, listen, it's prehistoric days now. It's so long ago, but I think that some of the challenge. Well, I think the challenges even for today, when people try to get into this business, is unless you go to work for a company like Netflix, Disney, ABC, whatever, a
Mm-hmm.
studio. If you're freelancing, it's very difficult because you work on a job and then you don't have a job. So you'll do a
Yeah,
show for
yeah,
6 weeks or 5 weeks or however long the show is, and then it ends. And if you don't have a show to go on to, then you are, you're basically unemployed. You're
yeah.
living on your savings. You're drawing unemployment. You are basically laid off, so you can draw unemployment, but that's not a lot
Mm-hmm.
of money either, especially
Right.
nowadays. And
Especially
so
with the
that was
gas
one of the
prices in
challenges.
LA.
Is yeah, I mean in LA, I
Jeez.
think even on unemployment, I think the highest rate you can make is like 450 a week on unemployment.
Mm,
I mean that doesn't even cover your rent in Los Angeles. Um,
yeah.
so that was one of the biggest struggles, was kind of really figuring out how to live in between and pick up gigs, day gigs, things like that through friends. I was very blessed to this, I mean, still to this day, but very blessed to have parents who filled in
Mm-hmm.
the lean times in the beginning, like when I was not work. They were very helpful because they understood the business and knew what I was going through, and that was not my fault if I could not land a job right
Right.
away. Um, so that was helpful, but I think that was one of the biggest struggles. And um, other
Yeah,
than that,
it's
it's just
not so
putting up with the
glamorous when
attitude.
you talk about those sort of things. Like people
Yeah,
tend to think these Hollywood jobs are so glamorous and stuff, but
yeah,
there's certainly an element to glamour to them,
yes,
but it comes with all this other stress that you can't even conceive of unless you're in it and going through it and all that
yeah. I
uncertainty.
mean, there's some really fun, glamorous moments and fun. I mean, I love being in the business because of like one of the biggest things is you travel the world, you see all these different locations. Been very fortunate to work on projects that have shot all over the United States, all over the world. And
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. Obviously there's some great parties you go to, big events, the Emmy Awards, the Oscars, like these big fun things. And that's what everybody sees, but they don't see
Right,
the day to day.
right.
And the business can have a very dark side to it too, where people can be,
Mm-hmm.
some people in power are very rude and disrespectful. But I mean, it's that way. And I think in a lot of businesses, obviously you deal with egos and all that stuff, but I've been very fortunate.
I will say that you were definitely one of the better people that I met in my time in that world on
Yeah.
Bourne.
Well, I'm glad that that's the truth. Or I'm
I mean,
glad
I
that
think
that's
that
that.
speaks a lot also to like your family and stuff and how close you are with them and
Yeah.
just how rooted you are.
I think
So,
I think so. I think there's a lot of people that are in the business that are vagabonds or come from places where they were probably mistreated growing up or never had it easy. Not easy. I didn't have it easy growing up. I mean, my family wasn't wealthy. It wasn't like that. But I mean, I,
hmm
I have a very solid family, faith-based, great, just great, great people and caring. So I hope can be the same to the people that I work with and for and have working under me.
yeah, great values. The entertainment business is notoriously fickle.
Yeah.
How have you found the confidence to stay in it, even with your parents in your early days, like filling
Hmm.
in the blanks and stuff?
Hmm.
As you grow in your career, it doesn't get easier. It just gets harder, I guess, in a different way. It gets easier in a
Yeah.
different way, but it's
Right.
still very
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I always thought starting out, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I made so much money a week, I'd be so much happier. And then you get to that place and you're like, if I made this much money, so it's always, money always makes things a little bit easier. It does not make you happy. I've completely learned that.
hmm
And I think a lot of people know that, but, um, it is a very fickle business. It is also within the last 5 or 6, 7 years. It's also in a transition, and rightfully
Yeah.
so for equality and things like that. But it also gets frustrating when you see people getting jobs that over you that certainly aren't qualified for them, but they get them because they need to. The studio needs to
hmm
fill that position or whatever it is. That's frustrating. So it's very fickle. But listen, it's something that I absolutely love to do. I mean, I love being on set. I love being a part of it. I mean, it's crazy. It's stressful. It is nuts. These sometimes studio executives are crazy people that have demands that you're just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But when you're in the midst of all that, it's very exciting. And on top of it all, when you see the finished product, a show that you've
hmm
worked on come out and people like it, it's very rewarding. So that part of it you keeps you going. Even though there are days where you're just like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'll
but
say it's also like, excuse me, really great to be around such like-minded people when
mm,
you're in production,
mm-hmm,
and everybody can understand what you're going through. Everybody's working crazy hours,
mm,
early mornings, late nights, the whole thing, and it becomes like a family. And the
100%.
yeah, and the time goes by so fast. Like you look up and the months have passed and you're already like
Yeah.
in post production and you know mourning
Yeah.
those horrible hours at the crew party or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, some of my closest friends that from the time I've lived in Los Angeles, some of my closest friends are people from shows, obviously like yourself.
hmm
And you go through the gamut when you're working on these projects. You're right. It's just like it's insane, but you become a family and you're there supporting one another, especially when you're on location and you're in a
hmm
place that no one knows you. So you hang out with everybody on the crew and you just become like a family. And that does help you get through the craziness too, because you
Yeah.
know that everybody else is going through the same thing. Except for some assistant that I knew at one point that worked for a star that pretty much just showed up for lunch. Can't remember her name.
I don't know who
Uh,
that is.
I don't know who that is either.
I would just say she was probably very hungry and
Yes.
You know.
Always, always hungry. Uh,
Well, yes. Let's move on. I'm quite sure she did other things
she
outside
did.
of
She
the
worked.
set
She worked
too.
very hard. I am sure she worked very hard. Yes.
I know she did. Speaking of which, I just rewatched Run Lola Run recently,
Oh, you
not long
did,
ago. Yes, yes, yes. It was so exciting to see
Franca.
Franca in her pre-born days.
Is she still acting?
I assume so.
Yeah, yeah. I just haven't
Yeah,
seen her in anything real recent, but I mean, obviously, a lot of her films were more foreign than American anyway. So,
yeah.
but
Small world. She ended up marrying a friend of mine's brother in
oh
that.
my gosh, that is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. That's
She was
Hollywood
great.
for you, kids. That's Hollywood
Right.
for you.
That's
So tell us, what have been some of the best and the worst things about working in the business for you?
mm. Well, like I said before, some of the best is traveling. You get to see the world on somebody else's dime, which is amazing because they're paying you to be, living in France and living in, or going to Germany or going to Australia, whatever it is. It's it's great. You get to see and experience so many things. Also creativity. You get to just live out some of your wildest kind of fun things that you want to do, but you put them into these shows and into these projects and they come to life, and that's awesome. So that's a lot of fun. And
Mm-hmm.
again, meeting all the people. I mean, it's amazing who I look back on, like things that people who I've met and had the opportunity to spend time with, whether they're in the business or because I am at an event or something where I'm meeting these people because of the position or job that I find
Mm-hmm.
myself in.
Mm-hmm.
um, has been fascinating. Some of the worst were just, moments when you're working with divas and these people who are just out of control or their egos. I had a producer who that I worked for on a crew as a production staff member, and you know, she threw a stapler at me. She,
Oh boy. It's
yelled
like
and
swimming with
screamed at
sharks.
me. Swimming with sharks. I mean, there was a couple of
Yeah.
times where I've worked for people where I'm like, oh my gosh, and I would never name names. The nice part is one of the people is
Right.
not even in the business anymore, and I don't think really did much after the movie that she was so out of control on that I was on. Um,
You should
so
send her a
that's interesting.
stapler as a Christmas present.
Yeah. Yes, I should. Um, yeah. No, I mean, one of the times working on that project, like this is the kind of egos that, pop up. She was not in the office yet, and I was there, and a big person walked into the office. I was the production coordinator, and a person walked in with a huge floral arrangement for the star of our movie, and it was coming from her agent,
Mm-hmm.
and it was gorgeous. And I said, who, whatever God took it. I said, we'll make sure she gets it when she gets to set. And um, while I was signing for it or whatever, and the person was there from the agency who brought it, um, she walked in and she was like, who the fuck? And, says her name, thinks that they're so and so.
Oh
And I'm
my.
like, what the heck? And I'm looking, and then I looked at the driver and I was like, oh, did you park in her parking spot? And he was like, I was just dropping this off for like 2 minutes. I was like,
Ugh.
so I went in and I said, it's the delivery person from the agency for so and so, the actress. And I don't care. And she parked her car behind him and made him sit there in the office for 3 hours till she left for lunch. I called the agency and said,
Oh
I
my
can't
God.
do anything about it. You can call this person if you want to, but this is what's happening. I'm sorry that your staff member did this, but they are stuck and they can't leave.
Ugh. And this is
And
the thing when people behave badly like that, how it puts you in this awful position because then
yes,
you're the one that has to
yeah,
communicate that to the agent
yes,
about what is happening.
yeah. Yeah,
They
and
can't just
whether
pick
you
up the
like,
phone and
it's not me, but it still makes me look bad. It makes our whole production look bad. It made the whole thing look bad, and this poor kid who's probably 18 years old or seven, eight, right out of
it's
high
so
college,
petty.
whatever, didn't know anything about it, and he's probably gonna end up losing his job because he, did something really stupid, which he will. I'm sure he never parked in somebody else's parking spot again. But
Yeah, that was a tough lesson.
yeah, a tough lesson to learn. And but it's also like, woman, I mean, give me the keys to your car, I'll go move it, we'll get your
Right,
car parked. But
right.
no, no, no. So yeah, that
Oh,
was very interesting.
Whew.
Yeah,
More of that
those kinds of
glamour.
things
More of that
throughout
Hollywood
my career.
glamour.
What's that?
I said more of that Hollywood
Yeah,
glamour.
more of that Hollywood glamour. Exactly. Exactly. Oh God, these people.
Um, Tell me, what is the one thing that you wish people knew about being a Hollywood producer?
Um, well, that it's not as glamorous as it seems. It is a
Mm-hmm.
job. It is a huge
Mm-hmm.
job when you're on, when you're on a project. Even if whether you created it or if you're hired as a freelance producer, you are then responsible to this network or studio for, their budget, coming in on budget, and also creating a product that is enjoyable for people to watch that they would then turn around and make money on. So, if they hire you to oversee 6 episodes and they're like, okay, here's $4 million to shoot this show for 6 episodes of a show, you have to make sure that you bring that show in on or under budget, and you don't have
Mm,
issue. There's a lot of, and there's so many components that go into making a show, and it all has to work together or else it doesn't work. And that's
yeah.
that's one thing. I think people think producers just sit on set and watch everything happening, and I don't know what they think, but it's like it's a
Right.
lot of work, 14, 15-hour days or longer, and
You're
just
literally
stress.
making everything happen on set.
Yeah, you're making everything happen, and when something's not happening, on the fly thinking about how to fix it.
Yep.
you know
Yep.
I can't. I've only done one thing that was live television. I cannot imagine doing live television for a career, because the stress of having it be live is crazy. But
That must be like
but
being an air traffic controller.
yes, yeah. I mean, but yeah, because one mistake, the whole show,
Yeah.
is crashes and burns.
Yeah.
At least when you're shooting something and have the positive, you have the luck of having post to try to fix it in post. That's the
Right.
big thing. We'll fix it in post, but that doesn't solve all the problems either. So,
Right. Right.
but yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, I think people think it's all glamorous, but it's not.
But it's not. Yeah. Which has been more rewarding for you, working in TV or film?
Hmm.
Or are they too
Um,
different
Well, I think that,
to
well, they are
compare?
different. I think I mean, the truth is, for me as a physical producer, I'm not in script. When you have scripted projects, there's physical producing, and then a lot of the producers are the writers and creators of the show.
Mm-hmm.
With me, I'm the physical producer, so I would be more in charge of making sure everything's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And then there'd be another producer on a scripted project that would be the writer, who would work with the actors and the director and make sure that the scenes are not done properly. Excuse me. Where I would be
Mm-hmm.
more physical on the scripted side. I don't think there's any difference in producing a television show, scripted or reality, or scripted film in that regard, because the crews are similar, the way that things work are similar, the way it all comes together is similar. So it's not as big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas television, the thing about television that I enjoy better is that it's faster.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
in the time that you do a movie and get it through pre-production, shooting, and post, you could have filmed like 2 or 3 TV shows, because
Right.
it's
Right.
much faster,
Right.
much faster. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
That is for
but I
sure.
enjoy both. I mean, what I do really enjoy, that I miss, because I do all reality mostly now, is I miss the actors. I
Mm,
loved being on set. I love being on set with actors and seeing them and the sets and all the design, like Cruel Intentions. I mentioned Cruel Intentions. The sets that we built for the interiors of the mansions that these kids lived in were so exquisite. And Denise Wingate, our costume designer, I love costume designers. I did a movie that was absolute trash. I worked on as a production assistant, but the costume designer, Roth,
Anne
Anne
Roth.
Roth,
Mm-hmm.
was the costume designer, and she's done every major movie, and she just won an Oscar for the Ray Fiennes movie that was in Africa. What was that movie?
Uh, Not
Shoot.
oh, I know what you're talking about. The one that came out with Jessica Chastain. That
No,
one,
no, no. It was no.
an
That was
older one.
this was Ray Fiennes, and the plane crashes in the desert, and he gets
Oh,
disfigured.
English Patient.
English Patient. So
Yep.
she had just won an Oscar, or was for that. And she just was phenomenal, and I would sit in her costume shop and just listen to the stories, and I just
Mm,
fell in love with her, and she's just amazing. And obviously Matt Damon, on Bourne Identity, watching him work, and then getting to know him as a person, and just fun. That's just, I loved all that.
right. I
you
miss
know.
being on set too, excuse me, and working with actors because you very quickly see that these are just people.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously they're famous and stuff for a
Mm-hmm.
reason, but they are literally just people.
Just
And to get
yeah,
to know the other side to them
yes,
is really fascinating and fun.
yeah, yeah.
It really
And
all
most
the
and
glamour, the
95%
glamour
of the time.
is stripped away immediately
Yes, and
after being in a
95%
room
of the
with these
time,
people.
it's fantastic. But, once in a while, you meet one that you're just like, oh, I'd rather have never met them. But
Yeah.
most of the time, they're just awesome people,
Mm-hmm.
and the nice part is when you're on set like that, they're comfortable because they're around people that know what they're doing. It's the safe environment for them, so they can actually be
Yeah.
themselves. Whereas
Yes.
opposed to if you run into them on the street, people are like, oh my God, they're so rude. It's like, no, they're not rude. They just don't know you, and they're not going to be open and carefree with you because they don't know you. Doesn't
Right.
mean that they're disrespectful or they don't like you. It just means that they don't know you from Adam. So why do
Just
they have?
like any normal person would not
That's right.
immediately be open and warm and fuzzy to someone they
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. It's the
I
same
mean,
thing.
people come up to you and I, like stranger comes up to me. I don't immediately act like myself. I'm like, whoa, what is this?
Right.
So
Yep. Yeah, it's like if people come up to me asking me if I play basketball and then get offended at my response, if I don't immediately start shucking and jiving for them and acting like that's the most original thing I've heard this week.
right.
I'm like, I'm sorry, did I ask you if you golf
Exactly.
or bowl? Because
You
you
seem to
look
have a good arm
built
there.
for
Are you a
that.
bowler?
Homer Simpson better watch out.
Oh my word, that's hilarious.
Hmm.
Mm-mm.
Um, Tell me, Herb, what has been
Yeah.
the biggest risk you've taken in your career, and how's it paid off, assuming that it
Mm.
has?
Well, I think I especially in the more recent years, uh, really standing up and saying I'm ready to show run and ready
Mm-hmm.
to executive produce and be the person that is on at least on set. It doesn't mean the final. I'm not the final answer because it's still answer to the studio and stuff, but on set, I'm the showrunner. I'm the final word. I standing up for myself and saying that's what I'm ready to do, and then having to wait until and get to the find someone who's willing to take that risk on me, and then
Yeah.
also me taking that risk on myself because again, like I said, the responsibility all lies on your shoulders. So that was a
And
risk.
can you tell us what the difference between show running and executive producing is?
Yeah. Well, yes, there are executive producers who are part of the show that might be studio executives or
Mm-hmm.
create the people who created the show, found the talent, created the idea,
Yep.
or whatever. And then there are executive producers who are the showrunners, and that person is the person who for my role would be working directly with the entire crew and staff, making sure that everybody has a schedule. We know exactly what we're shooting. We have the right crew. We have the right locations. We have the right cameras. We have the you are in charge of all of that. And then on the
Mm.
shooting days, you're on set making sure that you are getting through your day. Uh, even in reality shows, you don't just pick up the cameras and start shooting. You have specific things that you want to cover on a
Right.
day, like with the housewives. If it's, if we know that several of the housewives are getting together for a lunch, then that's what we need, or we know we need them to get together. Like if there was a big party at one of their houses and something happened at that party, then
Mm-hmm.
we know the next day we need to send a few of them to lunch or to dinner or shopping or something to where they can get together to
Yeah.
discuss what happened the night before and to carry
Right.
the story forward. You don't tell them what to say by any means. It is reality that
Right.
way. But if two of the women got into a huge argument or disagreement at the party, then the next day you send each one of them, or we make sure each one of them has contact with other cast members so that they talk about what happened
Yeah.
and move the story forward.
Yeah.
So
Create a
all
little
of
bit
those
more
things
tension.
are what the showrunner's involved in. Yeah.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Housewives, how did you land on that show, and which one has been oh, the most memorable experience?
Yeah. Gosh, well, it's interesting. There's a website for people looking for jobs,
Mm-hmm.
called Staff Me Up, and
Mm-hmm.
ironically, I got the only job I've ever gotten was I got a phone call from the company that does the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and they were looking for a field producer. I started with Housewives. I started lower down on the ring I ended up as co-EP, but I first started out field producer, which means that on that show there are several camera teams that follow because there's so many women. So the camera teams each have a producer that go out every day and film with different wives.
Right.
So that's how I got that job. And then over the years moved into supervising producing and then co-executive producing. Um, of the housewives, they're all individually, they're all so different. All the
Mm-hmm.
women are fantastic. I loved all of them. There wasn't one that I never didn't really like.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I'm closer to in the aftermath, meaning that after the show we keep in touch with each other. um,
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think the most memorable, that's a hard one, Beverly Hills and New Jersey, but they're so different.
Yeah.
The New Jersey women are just in your face, balls out, like just crazy. But they're all just the nicest, funnest people. But they're out there. Where the women of Beverly Hills are a little bit more refined, a little bit more, to themselves, but very, super sweet too. I mean, but I fell in love. I started on the show the same season as Lisa Rinna did on Beverly Hills, and to this day, she and I still communicate, and she's
Mm-hmm.
lovely and a lot of fun. And she left the show I think last season, but she's awesome. I love Kyle. Um, I'm very close to Marge on Housewives of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I love her and her husband are great. But all the girls on New Jersey I really liked. So,
What an
they're exactly
experience.
what you see on TV. They are who they are.
Right,
So.
right, right, right. Um, my last couple questions for you, Herb. What are you reading
Mhm.
right now?
What am I? uh, yeah.
Besides
On
scripts.
my phone. Um, you know what? I hate to say it. I'm not the biggest reader on the planet, which is horrible. You know, right now, I probably the last book that I am reading that I'll take with me on my trip. I'm getting ready to go out on vacation. I'm taking the Elton John biography, his autobiography. Um, I've been very fortunate over the years to go to Elton John's Oscar viewing party a number of
Mm-hmm.
times and have met him a few times, and he's just really intriguing me. So when his book came out, I wanted to read it. So I'm reading
He
that right
must be an
now.
amazing person to be around.
Yeah,
Talk about a
he's
creative
I
person. My
met him
goodness.
the first time I met him. He was on Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Actually, I booked him to come, and he donated a piano to a family that had three children that they had adopted that have HIV. So he came
Mm,
on and did a performance for us to raise money for them, and donated a red piano signed by him to the family for the new home. Um, and that's how I met him, and that's how I started getting invited to his Oscar event, and it just kind of has kept up with that. And he's the few times I've sat and actually talked to him for a few minutes, he's incredibly engaging and really
yeah,
sweet. Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm reading his book. But again, terrible, but I'm not a big reader.
Well, if you're on set 15, 20 hours a day,
Yeah.
it's probably
Yeah.
hard to find some time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll let that one slide then. But the
Okay.
next time you come back on this podcast, you
I
you tell
I
me.
will have a new book. Yes, I will. I'll find one to read.
And my last question for you is,
Yeah.
what piece of music inspires you?
What piece of music? I love big instrumental music soundtracks. Like I love the Hans Zimmer, like from Inception.
Yeah,
I love the soundtrack from Legends of the Fall. Just these
yeah,
great big instrumental pieces. I love, but I also I'm a product of my childhood, so I love like U2. I listen to U2 all the
hmm.
time.
You
Um,
should read his book. I finished it over the summer.
oh, you
Excuse me.
did?
Surrender, the book
Oh,
Bono
okay.
wrote. So
Oh,
if you need
good.
another
Yeah,
book after Elton
that's
John,
from.
read
I
that.
mean, that's his book. The main guy.
Yeah,
I might drawing a
Bono.
blank on it. Ridiculous, huh? Bono.
Bono.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bono.
Oh my gosh. Put on the spot. But yes. So I love them. I love So I but really, as far as inspiring me goes, I love the big instrumental music soundtracks.
Yeah.
So
You know what
yeah.
music soundtrack I've been listening to for
Hmm.
the last probably like 2 years that I really like. Did you see
Hmm.
that show Normal People? It was on Hulu.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that soundtrack, I
Yeah.
just find it so beautiful.
Oh, I'll
Yeah,
have to listen to it. Yeah.
yeah.
I love
It's
that
not this
series.
like, huge
Yeah.
Jaws-esque thing, but
Well, I remember that show was very kind of calm and very, a lot of
yeah,
drama, but very
yeah,
emotional.
exactly. And the soundtrack reflects that.
Yes.
It's
Nice.
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 It's nice. All right, Herb, thank you so much for coming on.
You're
I have really
welcome.
enjoyed this conversation, our little
Well, I loved it too.
entertainment walks down memory lane. And just to make it clear, so folks know, um, I was that person that maybe would call Herb around lunchtime to see what was on the menu in Paris and in Prague.
But she's also the one that I was hanging out with her in Mr. Damon's trailer, and I decided that I needed to use the restroom. Should I share this story, Trinette?
Please. This was a
And
Born
I
Identity
was
where Herb and I
at
met.
Born Identity years ago, 2000, and I was going to leave the trailer to go use the restroom in my trailer. And Trinette was like, "Oh, just go. Like Matt's on set. He's filming. He's not going to be." Oh, I was like, "No, I can't use his bathroom." And so she's like, "Never mind." And of course, he is the nicest guy, so it's not like a huge deal.
Yeah.
But you just don't do
This
that
was
kind
in
of thing in the business.
Imperia when
Yeah,
they
I
were
mean, this
shooting
is
the
his.
opening scene
Yes, he was out
in
floating
Italy.
in the
Yeah.
middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
So I was
It's
like,
like, he
okay,
ain't
and he
coming
is just super
back.
like,
Just go pee.
uh, so I go into the bathroom and I literally am 2 seconds into the whole thing, and the door opens and I hear Matt's voice. Stuck in the bathroom in Matt Damon's trailer, thanks to Miss Trinette Faint. And then Matt's like, "Herb, what are you doing?"
I was like, I told him not to use it. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. I have no idea what he's doing in there. I told him to go to his own trailer.
That
Oh,
was so
laughing.
funny.
Oh my
So
gosh,
funny.
what a night! And then I
That and
proceeded
when,
to fall out of the trailer leaving. I was so
yes,
embarrassed. You remember that?
yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Tripped on the stairs, fell out of the trailer. See you, Matt. Thanks. See you tomorrow on set. Have a nice night. Yeah.
Hollywood movie magic.
Yes.
Little did we know he was in a speedboat on his way back to the train
It's way back.
scene.
Thanks for the communication to the first AD. So yeah.
Anytime, anytime. All right, Herb. Thank you so much. This was so much
All
fun.
right, love. See
All
you
right.
later.
Thanks for listening, folks, to another episode of My Time, My Life. Until next time, take care. Bye. My Time, My Life with Trinette Faint is a Floor 51 production.